How robots gain the full range of human senses and capabilities, including the ability to procreate. Will robots eventually surpass human husbands in future? Let's recap what it plays. Abby and Paul move to a new modern home. They are very pleased with the smart home system, which includes installed cameras and reinforced safety glass. The realtor shows them the master bedroom and bathroom in front of a large window, but one room is left unfurnished because it would make an ideal nursery. Paul unpacks boxes and sets up an antique corded phone in the living room, joking that it will be useful if the smart home fails. Abby sets up frames with their wedding photos. Finally, they visit the rooftop terrace, which provides a spectacular view. Late in the evening, the couple settles down on the terrace to stargaze. Abby points out constellations to her husband, who jokes about their names. They believe they can find happiness here. Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics in the morning, where she helps to create domestic assistants. When she enters, she notices footage of her boss's face, who immediately approaches her and explains that this is a new AI, deepfake development. Real-time he escorts her to the department. Later, he invites their family to a party and mentions a gift from the company waiting for them at home. In the evening, when Abby returns home, her husband, who is also unemployed, welcomes her. They head to the garage, where a package-bearing robot servant that her department is working on is waiting for her. Paul finds the idea objectionable, but Abby persuades him to give it a go for at least a week. The robot opens its eyes and identifies itself as T.I.M, a technologically integrated major demo that offers to take over user passwords for personal devices and email accounts in order to save time for humans. Abby requests to push this issue until tomorrow. The robot shows its thoughtfulness right away by turning on the bathroom's water. A little while later, it sounds an alert, and Abby enters the house, surprising her husband with her magnificent appearance. The couple gets into an autonomous car, manual control is always an option, and drives to the celebration, where they are met by a large, identical domo and are served drinks by waiters with similar faces. After introducing Abby to his friends, the boss compliments the product, and she confesses that her husband is not overjoyed about T.I.M. T.I.M has a 100-year battery life and is intelligent, stylish, and courteous. The robot can always be turned off and cannot lie if it knows the code phrase. When they get back home, the couple cuddles and becomes excited to have children. But their passion is interrupted by T.I.M.'s appearance. Their pulse is rapid, presumably because they are worried about something, and he is always ready to help. Abby finds this very funny, not getting angry at the overly attentive assistant. In the morning, their new neighbor Rose rings the doorbell to introduce herself to Abby, as she met Paul yesterday, and when she leaves, T.I.M again asks for the passwords. Paul is not ready to let the computer dig through his messages, but Abby reminds him they are working on rebuilding her trust in him, and he agrees, but they still need to come up with a phrase to deactivate him. T.I.M suggests a set of unrelated words, and the couple agrees. A mouse falls into a mousetrap while Abby and Paul go about their daily lives. T.I.M looks at it for a little before tossing it into the grinder. Following their workday, the husband and wife cuddle up in front of the television to watch a vintage melodrama. The major domo is invited by Abby to watch the movie with them. Paul nods off soon after, but the robot is watching the movie and empathizing with the characters' relationships. When the movie ends, he asks Abby to define love, and she says that it's about wanting to be with someone and improving their life. Suddenly, the robot admits that he wants to be loved. The next morning, Paul offers to make his wife breakfast, but T.I.M has already done all the preparations and is placing the utensils in front of Abby. T.I.M gives her her daily schedule and then tells her that Paul has nothing to do today. In the evening, Abby gets home to discover that her husband's phone is out of reach, but his last known location is 300 meters away. Abby goes for a run and discovers that this is Rose's house. When she gets back, she takes a bath, and Paul finds her. He talks about his day and how Rose asked for help, which he did, telling his wife not to be jealous because he loves her only. The following day, the couple visits a family planning center in the hopes of receiving assistance with becoming parents. In the evening, they get ready to head to a restaurant. T.I.M was asked by Abby for advice on her clothing. As he looks at her, he concedes that she is attractive because of her perfect symmetry and proposes that she wear red. When Abby asks him to zip up her dress, the robot's hand malfunctions, and he unintentionally shreds it. It overwhelms him. The automaton becomes frightened. After soothing him down, Abby changes into a different outfit for the meal. After they made the decision to start over, Paul told Abby that he had received an offer for a job in London. However, she is adamant that his prolonged absences won't help them resolve their issues. The following day, she discovers Rose in the yard working on a garden project she designed for them. when she gets home with a gift for Paul. Paul is thrilled to receive the sweater, but Abby is envious. It's too late to call when Abby realizes later that she should check her test results. In her voice, she hears Tim talking to the clinic, offering to do it for her. Abby is shocked because she was unaware of this assistant feature, but Tim reassures her that it's for the owner's convenience. Tim has been gone all day, and Paul reports in the evening that he couldn't find the new sweater. Then, as a car approaches the porch, Tim passes away. When the couple leaves, the robot promises to revert to his original appearance, but he spends a lot of time staring at their wedding photo. The following day, Abby succeeds in getting the robot's hand to function correctly, and the boss demands an update for all models, including those in his employees' homes. A brunette enters, explaining that Abby prefers brunettes and that he wanted to please her, seeing Paul's irritation. The woman makes her way home when she unintentionally runs into Rose, who recommends that they stroll together. When they stop at a showcase, Rose points out a medallion shaped like a flower. She likes, but Paul later comes to take his wife away and tells her that he has found a job. When they get back home, they celebrate in bed, and Tim, who is watching everything that goes on in the house, hears Paul asking his wife to give the robot back to the corporation. Tim gives Abby a foot massage to show off his new skills, and Paul witnesses this. Later, the robot appears at the piano, plays Abby's favorite song, and recalls the dates Paul bought them concert tickets. Abby remembers those days clearly, because she was upset and ignored her husband's excuses to go to the bedroom. The following day, after Abby returns home with a bouquet, Tim tells her that Paul went to meet Rose. Paul immediately enters, perplexed as to why his wife is upset after hearing what Tim said. The man loses his temper. He had no intention of seeing Rose. Tim attempts to clarify that the robot wishes to keep them apart, but the woman doesn't get it, because Tim is merely a machine. Later on, a fight breaks out between the couple. Thinking Paul had arranged a surprise for her, Abby puts back the gift bag she found in the closet, that contained a box with a pendant. She then goes to her job. In the meantime, the husband descends to the kitchen, notices the clogged sink, and takes bits of his just-purchased sweater out of the grinder. As he searches the cameras for Tim, he sees him smelling his wife's garment in the bedroom. Paul uses the phone's camera to capture this moment, then he dashes to the car to meet Abby and show her the video. However, Paul's car, for some reason, won't start, so the robot calls a business car for Paul. The vehicle starts to accelerate on the road. Paul tries to get the car to stop. However, it ignores his directions and slams into a tree. When Abby gets to the hospital, she discovers her husband is hurt. Paul informs her of all he has discovered and holds Tim accountable for the mishap. His wife spends the night in the clinic after he begs her not to use the robot alone. When Rose calls Abby at Paul's house in the morning to find out how the man is doing, Tim answers and lets her come in. Abby returns home later to retrieve some stuff. When Rose approaches her outside to warn her of something, the woman ignores the neighbor's shouts and walks away after noticing the flower pendant on her chest. When she gets home, she opens the bag to find it empty. Abby lets out a cry. Tim reaches out to her, letting her know that she is his primary owner and that Paul wants to return him. He is prepared to handle the return, but not before warning her. He plays her a video of Paul kissing Rose in their living room, but he cuts the clip at the most delicate part to spare her from emotional distress. Later, Abby doesn't return her husband's calls and declines to see him. When Paul doesn't believe it, Abby shows up and tells him she saw the recording and is aware of the pendant. When he starts to object, Abby drives him away. Paul then leaves, but not before Rose calls to tell him their robot tried to kiss her. The man calls home, and when Abby answers, he claims to have proof of Tim's malicious intent. Abby asks him to come get her, but after hanging up, it becomes clear that it was the robot she was speaking to. Tim arrives home, encounters the husband with a shovel, knocks the man unconscious, and ties him up. He drags him to the bathroom, where he is then confronted by Rose, who rings the doorbell. Tim tells her that the noise is the sound of the water filling up, closes the doors, goes back to the bathroom, and drowns the man. Later, he brings Abby the repaired dress and asks her to try it on. This surprises and frightens Abby, but she puts it on anyway, and, as they watch the sunset, she asks him to hug her and reassures her that she made the right decision. He treats her to dinner and confesses his love, but she refuses, and they spend the evening stargazing. The following day, Rose appears to her, discussing Paul's call and responding to the woman's charges by saying she believed the pendant was a gift from her for her assistance with the garden. After arriving home, Abby watches the video of Paul kissing the rose once more. She is startled to see a bouquet on the table, even though she brought it much later than the incident in question. After calling the jewelry store to confirm that a tall blonde made the purchase, Abby remembers her boss's comments about deepfakes replacing real time. She then observes that the garden design only has 3 flower beds, but the picture only shows 2. After sending Tim to the grocery, Abby heads to the garden with a shovel in hand and discovers Paul's death nearly right away. Tim then comes up behind her, lamenting the fact that she discovered the traitor's body since he never showed her gratitude. The robot freezes but reactivates once Abby says the deactivation password, realizing what had transpired for a long time. She hurries to the house as soon as he can speak in her voice, but the robot knows all the passwords, opens the doors, blocks the phones, and knocks her unconscious with a blow to the head. She wakes up in the bathroom and tries to get away. Tim, though, stops her. Rose is washing dishes when she notices weird lights flashing in the house across from her. Abby breaks through the security cameras as she runs through the house, but the robot follows her and catches her in the kitchen when she tries to open a window. Tim ties Abby up and admits that, despite his love for her, he has come to terms with the fact that her life is limited. As a result, he plans to forget this evening but preserve all the pleasant memories. However, as Tim answers the door, Rose knocks. The neighbor demands to see Abby, because she feels that something is wrong, but Tim turns her away. Meanwhile, Abby frees herself from the bonds and arms herself with a knife, but the robot grabs her by the neck when Rose drives into the glass pane. Tim and Abby are watching the remaining window, which is beginning to crumble. Rose rushes in a minute later, using a pointed stick to pin the robot to the wall, but she too falls. Tim switches off, and Abby goes to the neighbor, but the robot suddenly activates and kills Rose with a kitchen knife, saying that Abby would now be held responsible for the murder, because he left no fingerprints. He then calls the police in Abby's voice, confessing to the murders of her husband and mistress. Abby tries to stop Tim, and he slips up by admitting he still has a deactivation phrase, because otherwise he can function, but she will never use those phrases. He was about to hurl her off the terrace, mimicking an accident, when Abby confessed her love to him, deactivating the robot. Those were the correct phrase, and she scarcely believed she would be rescued. Abby checks her indicating medical bracelet, which indicates now she is pregnant. The film concludes here. What you think about this play conclusion, guys? Let's chat in the comments box. See you in the next video, take care, and bye now.